Hi, everyone. Hope this message finds you well. I just wanted to share with you the importance of the holiday of Lag BaOmer. Where does it come from? What are the origins of Lag BaOmer? The Gemara tells us that the greatest teacher in the history of the Jewish people, which we'll get to later, Rabbi Akiva, had 24,000 students who perished in a magefa, in a plague, between Pesach and Shavuos. Where does Lag BaOmer come into play? So the Rishonim, the commentaries tell us about this Gemara on page 62 in Yevamos. They say that the plague did take place between Pesach and Shavuos, but it ended 15 days before Shavuos. So day 34 was the first time in which this plague did not take any lives. There were no more cases, no more deaths within Rabbi Akiva's students and their communities. These specific students held the Torah of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara tells us they didn't honor one another, and therefore their Torah deserved to perish along with them. But alas, you and I definitely struggle with the fact that we don't have this Torah. Similar to the modern times, the atrocities committed, or the scholars who departed early. We didn't just lose precious, holy physical lives. We also left. We also had to say goodbye to tremendous intellectualism, tremendous academics, tremendous Torah study and Torah scholarship. So that was what was at risk. Fortunately, on this day of Lag BaOmer, we celebrate the preservation, the end of this plague. In fact, there are those who suggest, and indeed it seems to be the most likely scenario, that Rabbi Akiva, thousands of years ago, the dying stopped on the 33rd, Lamed Gimel, Lag BaOmer. The 34th day of the Omer, that was when Rabbi Akiva started his lectures again. He knew that we had to go on. He knew that Torah had to survive. He knew the people of the book needed the book. So the first lectures after the plague took place the very next day. The plague ended on the 33rd day of the Omer. In terms of looking at the Jewish calendar, the lectures began with 5 new students on the 34th day of the Omer. And so we celebrate Lag BaOmer because it represents the continuity of Torah. Who was this Rabbi Akiva? Why was he so great? The story that comes to mind, the medrash that comes to mind, is that Moshe was shown in a vision. He was shown in a vision, says the Gemara tells us, that he was in the classroom, the lecture hall of Rabbi Akiva. Moshe sat in the back row. He didn't understand a word of what was going on. He didn't understand Rabbi Akiva's lesson. He was very distraught. The Torah was given through myself, to Yoshua, and to the Jewish people, passed down generation to generation from me. And I can't understand what's going on. Eventually, in the course of the lecture, Rabbi Akiva showed the development of the scholastics from the times of Moshe. Moshe's name was referenced in the lecture, and Moshe's distress was abated, and he felt much better about everything. But Rabbi Akiva's scene and his wisdom, his genius, was so apparent to Moshe. Moshe commented as such to the Almighty, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in this medrash. And so this was Rabbi Akiva, the greatest teacher of the Jewish people. And what we celebrate is right before total annihilation, when there wouldn't have been anybody else for Rabbi Akiva to transmit and to continue the Torah to. Lag BaOmer represents the mercy of the Almighty, that even though the greatest, the most pious, the most righteous, even they deserve to be part of this plague for not showing respect, kavod, one to another, and it shows us how important that really is. Thankfully, right at that moment in which utter annihilation of the continuity of Torah would have been had, the plague ended and we were able to continue on. And the Meiri suggests about this Gemara in Yevamos and about the holiday one of our most important Rishonim, the Meiri, he says in his commentary, the Beis HaBechira, that we need to celebrate. We need to acknowledge that when justice is served, then peace can be had. In other words, if a punishment takes place, and the punishment is now concluded, and we were spared, or the community was spared, or the fallout left a certain amount, allowed us to continue on, to then build on that again. And of course, there is this cycle, highs and lows. As long as we can build from the low point, then we can continue on. And that's what we're celebrating. And the comparison is to justice, when judgment is rendered. So then the community can move on. Somebody pays what they owe. They have a certain liability to another. If somebody has a punishment or a debt to society, and then that is taken care of, so then we can move on. We're made whole again. And judgment was rendered, justice was served. However we understand this plague took place against Rabbi Akiva's students, but now we can move on. We're no longer going down, we're going up. And from this moment of Lag BaOmer, we can go up to Shavuos with great confidence that we can now build. We're no longer just trying to survive, we can now thrive. And that's what Lag BaOmer represents in terms of the preservation of Torah. And so on this day, as is specified in our literature, weddings can take place, and our liturgy can represent the happiness of the day. We're supposed to add some cheer to the day of Lag BaOmer, and we should show respect for the day. Now we can take haircuts. We don't want to be in bereavement. Torah always wants to minimize negativity as much as possible. On the 33rd day of the Omer, there was still death. There was still this plague, but it ended on this day. So maybe we should acknowledge that by observing the 33rd day as a time of sadness. But the Torah tells us that mixes Yom Kikulo. Then when it comes to Shiva, we get up from Shiva on the morning of the 7th day. The conclusion of the 30th day is in the morning. And there we don't want to add on to our bereavement, to our Avelus. And so the 33rd day of the Omer, now, as soon as morning breaks we can go ahead, get our haircuts, we can shave and do everything that we couldn't do before to show we're getting up from bereavement. We're now moving to a chapter of thriving, of building upon what was left, the remainder, and going from there. Who was this Rabbi Akiva that we're celebrating on Lag BaOmer? Who was this individual? Rabbi Akiva, the greatest teacher. This day, which is a holiday in a sense in honor of him because of his preservation of the Torah. So who was this Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva describes himself. He said, when I was ignorant, he said, when I was growing up, I had a certain insolence, I had a certain rebelliousness. I hated Torah. I hated Torah scholarship. The Gemara tells us that he likened himself to a donkey who would want to bite the rabbis when he saw them. He had so much anger and such a passion against Torah when he was younger. And his student said to him when he relayed this, you mean to bite like a dog? A dog? He says, no. I said to bite like a donkey, because the jaws of a donkey are stronger. They crush the bones of that which they're biting. It's stronger than a dog's bite. He said that was the level of animosity that I had within my heart against rabbis, against rabbinic scholarship. And he went from that point, and he had this transformation and this development, and he realized he had been mistaken. And sure enough, he went from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high, the greatest teacher we've ever had. That was Rabbi Akiva. If anybody could build upon this plague of the vast 99% of our scholars at the time, the 24,000, if anybody can build off of that, to take his students and have that pain and be able to build, he knows what it's like to go from the low point to a high point. Rabbi Akiva took Lag BaOmer, and he said, the Almighty gave us a chance. All we need is a chance, and we can build on that. And no matter how bleak things are, Rabbi Akiva is the ultimate optimist. We can build from there. So no matter where we are in life, no matter what we have, we realize that this moment on Lag BaOmer should inspire us. The message of Lag BaOmer should take us every day, no matter how frustrated we get, no matter where we are in our lives. As long as we have something to build on, we can thrive, we can grow from there. That's the message of Torah. That's the message of Rabbi Akiva. That's the message of Lag BaOmer as we now journey forward. Slowly but surely, in a few more days, a couple more weeks to go until Shavuos, when we're able to re-accept the Torah and celebrate our Sinai once again and the importance of Torah in our lives each and every day. Thank you and have a great Shabbos.